Welcome to All Things Flamingo podcast with the Flamingo Group and myself, Beth Reilly. Join us as we discuss all things to do with our community, real estate, and all things Flamingo. Welcome and tune in for a flocking good time. Hello, David. Thank you for coming on All Things Flamingo. This is David Clark, and David is going to be running for mayor for the City of Bloomington. Thank you so much. I have known you from when you ran for the city council in the 3rd district in 2021, and you are also a pilot, if that's correct.
That's correct, Beth. Thank you so much for this warm welcome, this opportunity. I've lived in Bloomington for 20 years now, moved here in 2003 from Minneapolis. And I've been, like you mentioned, I've been in aviation all my life. Went to school for aviation as a college student, and then worked at a company in Eden Prairie for 7 years at the Flying Cloud Airport. And then now I've been on the airline side for 6 years, flying for an airline. So that's my background. I did start a group a couple of years ago, a citizens watchdog group here in Bloomington, just to inform residents on what was happening at the city council and school board level and get them more involved in voting. And that's given me a lot of insights in what's going on in our city. And that's what led me to run for mayor.
Excellent. You're also a business owner. So you founded Integris Aviation Consultancy. So you also run a business, you're a pilot, and you are running for the mayor. So you're multi-talented, as they say.
Yeah, well, it's we'll see how that all works out, but it'll work out. I'm sure it'll work out, and it's an opportunity to stretch myself and grow, but also an opportunity to serve. And at a critical time when the city needs leadership, it needs new direction, and I think that a lot of the skills and things I've gone through in the past, including my experience as an airline captain, that prepares me to lead something like a city, because there's a lot of parallels in the skills that you have to have as an airline captain to leadership skills when you're running an organization or running a city or something of that nature. So I think there's some real.
Can you give me an example of how that would be a correlation?
Sure. Well, there's several things. I mean, the difference between being a first officer or a co-pilot and a captain is, I mean, you're sitting next to each other in the same cockpit, but you're worlds apart in terms of your perspective. Now that I've been a captain, I realize just how important it is. Things like consensus building, expanding the team when you're facing some sort of a situation or an unpredicted event, getting different voices, getting different people involved, so you have a really complete picture of what's going on, so you can make a good decision. Another thing is foresight, being able to look down, look out 300, 400, 500 miles, look down the road, so to speak, and anticipate things that could happen. So, in the cockpit, you're always looking for things that could go wrong. If you have a problem with one of the engines, if you have a passenger that gets sick and you have to land the aircraft immediately, you could have, any number of things that could happen that would require you to take immediate action and get that aircraft to the ground. So those are all skills that you have to have as a captain, but those are skills you would need when you're running a city as well. Foresight, consensus building, leadership, decision-making, having a backup plan, never allowing yourself to be painted into a corner. Those are all things that I would bring to the table as a mayor.
Excellent. You're also saying it would take teamwork.
Absolutely. I mean, teamwork is everything. The main thing is communication. I mean, that is the core of everything. So when we're taught as captains at the airline level, which is the PhD of flying, that is communication is probably the most important thing you can be doing, is communicating with other people. So you're always communicating with people. I'm always trying to think, who am I leaving out of this discussion that needs to be involved in this discussion? And so I'm always trying to think about who it is that I need to be bringing in to get their opinion, to get their input, so that I can make a better decision with the others that are involved in that flight.
Excellent. I think also when we've spoken, you also give a really nice overview picture. So it helps people understand where the vision is and direction. Just like when you were saying now it's 400 400 miles out what's coming down the pike or coming up ahead. I think that that's also really important in being a good leader and having a great vision for what you see coming for Bloomington.
Right. And so with Bloomington, obviously, we're not looking at miles, we're looking at years. So when I look out, 3 to 5 years, maybe 10 years, I'm really concerned about what I see with the current leadership in the city. I'm concerned about the financial state of the city and some of the ticking time bombs that we have from a fiscal standpoint that are just going to overwhelm us down the road. And so that's kind of the equivalent. So in the, when you're flying an airplane, you're looking down, your flight path and, hundreds of miles or even hours into the future to figure out what's going to happen and how to respond to it. With something like the city, you're looking at years. So you're looking at 3 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years. You're really looking at a measurable unit of time that is going to be impacted. That's going to impact and is going to be impacted by the direction you're heading in. So if you're not on the right pathway as a city, you've got to make a course correction right now in order to prevent problems in the future. And I think that's the critical stage that we're at right now. Bloomington's really at a crossroads, and we really have to decide what it is that we want for the future.
What would you say are some of the biggest things that you're looking at right now going forward? Like we're looking at what's happening right now in Bloomington, what's going to happen tomorrow, and then, of course, together. You mentioned earlier the teamwork and having a good vision. I know that we'll get into the other part of the crossroads. What do you see as your overall view right now?
Well, I think that one of the concerns that many people have, especially people that have moved from Minneapolis to come to Bloomington to have a different life experience, we're finding that that we're becoming more and more like Minneapolis. Okay. So a lot of the problems that are plaguing Minneapolis and that are causing really the failure of a large American city, and it's very sad to see, those same things are coming our way. And a lot of people came to Bloomington to get away from those things. And so we're seeing that Bloomington is not charting its own course as a high quality alternative to Minneapolis and St. Paul, but we're instead becoming more and more like them. And that's a very kind of a high level analysis of what it is. But, people want less Minneapolis. They want more Bloomington. They want more uniqueness. They want more opportunity. They want a differentiated lifestyle than they would have if they were to live in Minneapolis or St. Paul. And yet we find more and more that we're becoming more and more like these cities that were once great cities. And in many respects, they still are. But they've also taken on aspects that are, putting them in a very precarious position going forward in a lot of different ways. And so we don't want to do that. We want to be a very high quality alternative. Bloomington is perhaps one of the best positioned cities in the metro area from a location standpoint. I mean, we are privileged when it comes to location. We see other inner ring suburbs that are 30 to 40 minutes away from the Mall of America, 30 to 40 minutes away from the airport. The airport is on our doorstep. I can get to the airport in 8 minutes and literally be on an airplane to anywhere in the world within a couple of hours. It's an amazing asset that we have. And so our location is one of our greatest strengths. You're from the real estate business, right? What's the top 3 things when you look for a home? It's location.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we have that as a city. We have that as a city. We have location, but that's just one of the assets that we have. But we don't want to negate that asset by taking on qualities of cities that we know are failing. And that's one of the biggest concerns I have about Bloomington right now.
Right. And for most people that come to Bloomington from Minneapolis or St. Paul, one of their biggest reasons is safety. It
is. It's safety. It's good schools. It's growth that can be absorbed over time. And when they see the explosion in uncontrolled growth right now, that we literally are not prepared to absorb, it's very concerning to people. And so, that's one of the things that we're seeing is just an explosion in multifamily housing. And we need more options for housing. No question. We need more options where people can live, where people can start their lives and eventually get into single family homes or condominiums, something that they can own and build equity, right? That's one of the foundations of the American dream, is the ability to build equity. And so a lot of people start that process in an apartment. And I don't have any issue with that at all. I've lived in apartments before in my life, and it's a solution for a lot of people. But we are seeing an explosion in uncontrolled growth. And that's one of the concerns a lot of people have, is how are we going to absorb all these people to Bloomington? How are we going, where are we going to have schools for all the kids? Where are we going to have different things that is, that we know it's going to take years to absorb this many new people into Bloomington, and we need to have time to do that.
And to plan it accordingly, not just throw up rentals.
Correct. Plan it. Welcome these people into our community. Bring them into the workforce. Weave them into the fabric of our city. But we are doing this in an uncontrolled way. And now we've changed the zoning requirements where multifamily housing units can be put into neighborhoods. And that's something that concerns a lot of people as well. That's an ordinance that was just passed just a few months ago here in Bloomington. And that's another big concern is, what are we doing? How are we preserving the character of our neighborhoods by allowing development that these neighborhoods don't want? And yet the city is coming down very hard on these neighborhoods and saying, this is what we're deciding that you're going to do, even though these neighborhoods are saying, we don't want that. That's not what we want. And yet the city's basically saying, tough luck. It's what we're going to do. And that's just wrong. That's not representing residents. That's not following their wishes. And that's another area that includes that concerns housing. That's a big issue in our city right now. What we've just done with zoning.
Right. And it will usually be in neighborhoods that have large setbacks and large pieces of land that they can now put up duplexes, triplexes, whatever it is for that size lot.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's that's another big concern that I've heard from people, and especially in West Bloomington where the lots are larger. You're getting up into multiple tens of thousands of square feet, and so some of those older lots. You also have the environmental aspect where you start developing these lots, you start tearing down literally hundreds of trees and disturbing the environment. So if we are an environmentally conscious city, which we are, then why are we pursuing policies which literally lead to the tearing down of hundreds of trees, if not thousands of trees, and disturbing habitat? It's just not a very smart way to go. I think it's very short-sighted.
How does Bloomington rank in comparison to other communities?
Well, I mean, I'm biased because I live here.
Right.
I think it ranks high, and we want to keep it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We want to keep it that way, but I think it can be even higher. So when I think of Bloomington, I think it's good, but I think it really could be great. And we need to take it from good to great. And there's things that we could be doing to take it from good to great, but we're not. We're taking it from, good to
mediocre.
Yeah, we're taking it from, good to unremarkable, and we don't want to do that. We want to be a remarkable city. We want to be a city where that's literally the crown jewel of the Midwest. We want a city where people come here and say, why in the world would I want to live anywhere else? What do we not have here? We have tons of parks, trails. We're close to everything. We're close to the Mall of America, close to downtown. I can get to downtown Minneapolis in 15 minutes if I want to see a show or go to dinner or go to a business meeting. I mean, we've got just a lot going for us here, but we're trading that away. We're trading those advantages away when we pursue policies that are really going to harm us in the long term. And we've got to correct that course.
Right. No, you gave us a chart. It's the quality of life in Bloomington and how it's rating. or excellent or good, and then community comparison. This was something that you had given us. Now, this was an interesting chart because I was looking at what does some of this mean. Like at the first line, it says Bloomington is a place to live. 91% is the rating, and then community comparison similar. Could you tell us a little bit what this whole chart what this means?
Well, that's not my chart. That's a chart that actually came from the city. Every year, the city they bring in a company to do a survey of different aspects of city life, and all this is doing is just saying that most people feel that overall Bloomington is a high quality place to live, and that that there's other good places to live too, but they don't have what we have. Now, for example, there's places in the metro area that have different things than we do. For example, Minnetonka has a lot of water. We don't have a lot of water here. We have the river, have a few lakes. You can't even swim in them. So, water is not our big strong suit like maybe Minnetonka does. But we have something Minnetonka doesn't have, and that's location, close to the airport, close to downtown. And so we have things that they don't have. So I think that overall, people are satisfied with Bloomington, just the layout of Bloomington, the north, south, east, west streets, kind of like Minneapolis is laid out in a grid fashion, which is very easy to navigate and get around. And so, it's an easy city to navigate. It's an easy city to drive around. The location obviously is a big part of it, but there's things that we have that others don't have, and vice versa.
Right. And are we being creative in that? Because I think we could be a little more creative and have the numbers go up even higher. I think that we're kind of just going along. So we're just moving right. We're, for lack of a better term, it's kind of blasé. That's great. We compare. It's similar. It's nice. But we have Mall of America. We do have the airport. I think we can do a lot more, especially to build out. If we are going to have rentals, I do think that there are options that would be really terrific in different parts of Bloomington. But I would rather have a plan for it instead of, oh, here's a piece of land. Let's put up a duplex. Here's a piece of land. Let's buy these pieces of land out, because builders might have really a lot of money right now to be able to do that. Are we videotaping any more of the city council meetings, and are those readily accessible for anybody?
Yes, they are. The city council meetings are all on YouTube. They're broadcast live. They are available on the city's website. Okay. Bloomington BEC, the Bloomington Educational Channel. They also have them stored on their server as well. You can go, so there's no issue there. The problem is the lack of engagement by residents. We have a city of roughly 90,000 people. At any given city council meeting, maybe 15 people will be logged in watching the meeting. Mm-hmm. And they're making decisions that are affecting your life. Like they're affecting your rights, your free speech, your taxes, the spending. These are some of the most important things that we can be talking about in our local civic life. And yet 99.9% of people are just completely checked out with what's going on in Bloomington from a city council standpoint. And hey, I was one of those people. For 17 years I was here, I had absolutely no idea. I knew Gene Winstead was the mayor because I got the little Bloomington briefing. And but that's all I knew. I didn't know my council member were I didn't know when they were elected. I didn't know anything about districts and precincts, and I didn't know anything. I had absolutely no idea. And it was only about 2 or 3 years ago when I started waking up to what was going on, and I really started realizing what was happening in Bloomington.
Right. And that's when you went into the 3rd district and you ran to.
It's what led to me running was getting woken up to these issues, and just really disturbed with the attitude that the city council and the mayor have towards the residents. It's almost an antagonistic attitude, almost like they're bothered by the fact that people have questions or people are upset about what's going on in the city. And I'll give you a perfect example. Last 5 months, you go on the city's Facebook page, comments have been shut off for the last 5 months. They don't like what people are saying. So what do? They just shut it off. They just completely shut it off. They don't want to hear what the residents have to say. So what do you do with a city council like that? What do you do with a mayor like that? So 2 years, 2 years ago, at the very last minute, I decided to jump in the race. I didn't really know what I was doing, but this year I have a lot more idea of what it takes to run a race, and we're going to run a real race this year and win this seat.
So the city council meetings are when?
It varies. It's not on any set date. They're on Mondays, but usually there's two to three, probably 3 meetings a month, which is one more meeting than they really need. They only really need 2 meetings a month. But the problem is they're doing so many more things that they should be doing. They're straying from really running what the city needs to be doing as a city. And so they get involved in all these other things that have nothing to do with the city and
the running of a city.
Yeah, with the running of the city. They get involved. It's similar to mission creep. And so it keeps creeping and creeping and creeping until finally you wake up one day and you realize this city is trying to do way too much. They're trying to address issues that are none of their business. They're trying to do things that are just way beyond their scope. Oh. And really, you only need 2 meetings a month to run this city. All the council members are part-time. Even the mayor's part-time. This is a part-time job, and it should be able to be run just fine with that. But we find this city council doing things and pushing agendas that are none of their business. But that's what drives the 3 meetings or maybe even the 4 meetings a month, is the fact that they're trying to do too much.
So in 2023 general election, there's a whole bunch of seats that are open. In fact, this is historical, isn't it, to have this many openings?
It is.
City council. So if you could talk about that a little bit.
According to the city clerk, Christina Schiponi, she said that this is historic, and this is the first time Bloomington has ever had all 6 city council members and the mayor and 3 school board up for election at the same time. There's 10 local races. And what makes this unique is that there's no other races. So a lot of times when you vote for city council, you also vote for state senator, you also vote for a president of the United States, or there's going to be other people on the ballot. There's nobody else on the ballot except Bloomingtonians this year.
Wow.
That's very exciting. Yeah, and it's because we did this redistricting last year. We had to balance out the district. So we got 4 districts in Bloomington. Bloomington's laid out kind of like a rectangle, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And then each of those districts is divided into smaller units called precincts. And those precincts are divided into city blocks, and those city blocks are divided into individual homes. And so as you zoom in from space, the first thing you're going to see is the state of Minnesota. Then you'll see Hennepin County, and then you'll see the city of Bloomington. Then you'll see those 4 districts, and then you'll see the precincts. And that's how our city is laid out. And so we had to rebalance the districts because no district can have more than 5% difference in population from the other. So because of the census in 2020, we found that things had shifted a little bit. So we had to redraw the lines so that each district was about the same as the other.
Great. So we have the mayor position open, the city council at large. What does at large mean?
At large means that there's 2 city council members that are at large. That means that they represent the entire city, just like the mayor does.
Okay.
So you have 2 at large, just like we have 2 senators, right? And for the state. But then we also have 1 council member for each of those 4 districts. So district 1, 2, 3, 4, they each get their own council member, but then you get 2 at-large council members, and then you get the mayor on top of that to boot. So the idea is to give people a good cross-section of representation. So everybody in the city has 4 direct representatives. They have their district council member, they have the 2 at large, and they have the mayor.
Wow.
So each person is supposed to be very well represented. It's not how it's worked out recently, but that's the way it's supposed to be.
So it's district council members, 1 to 4 of them. Okay. Candidate filing. So you filed now. It's official. You're running for mayor.
That is correct. I filed. It's a $50 filing fee. It's relatively simple. You go down to City Hall and meet with the city clerk, who's just delightful. And, she walks through a packet of paperwork, takes about half an hour. There's some, obviously some things you got to fill out, name, address, etc., and pay your $50 and you're on your way. And that's where it begins.
Wow. So I could do that right now. It's 4:20. I better hurry up.
You got 40 minutes. We need somebody you don't live in District 1, do you?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, we need somebody in District 1. We found, I think we found candidates for all the other races. And by we, I mean a loose, group, loosely knit group of residents who pay attention to city issues. We've helped find other candidates that have decided to run. We've got some phenomenal candidates.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Do you have any names you can give me?
Well, for one, our former chief of police, Mike Hartley.
He's doing it. Okay.
He's filed for District 3. We got John Minks, who's a small business owner, 50-year resident of Bloomington, former ex-military. He was in law enforcement in the military. He's a small business owner. He owns Johnny Rock Bikes, which is a bike shop in Old Cedar and Old Shakopee, right next to the Shell station there, and the Eagles Club. We've got others. We've got, who else do we have? We have Bruce Colton, who's running at large. Victor Rivas is running again. He ran 2 years ago in District 4.
I remember that.
He'll do really well. And Paul King. Paul King ran at large 2 years ago, and now he's running District 2 against Sean Nelson.
Well, I hope that they like all things Flamingo, because I got to get them on this podcast, start getting them talking to everybody and hearing their vision too. Yeah, no, they're phenomenal people. We got a phenomenal group of candidates, really qualified people. Their heads are in the game. They want what's good for Bloomington. And we all share, a similar vision of fiscal responsibility and good governance, true representation, protect free speech, protect the Constitution. And so, while we're all different people and we have slightly different variations, we kind of all, agree on some of those things. It just happened to be that way. Excellent. Well, I've always been really impressed. You and I have spoken several times. I think I got onto your Facebook page and started reading and listening to stuff. So that's how you and I got connected. And ultimately, I'm very pleased that you were able to come on to All Things Flamingo. If you're investing in our community at this time, what are some of the key areas that you would focus on as mayor? Well, we obviously have to do something with Creekside, right? So Creekside is a former public school that was turned into a community center for seniors many years ago. Its time has come. It needs to be replaced. Mm-hmm. The problem is the city wants to replace it with a monstrosity of a building that currently is budgeted at over $100 million. By the time it gets built, it'll probably be $1.25, maybe $150 million. And that's just to build it. Then you got to operate it. And the city is not really, they're just not, and when I say city, I don't mean the city employees. I'm talking about the city council. I'm talking about the mayor, the city manager, the leadership. It's not in their DNA. It doesn't seem to be in their DNA to partner with private organizations. They really have this mentality that, hey, we need to build this new bureaucracy. It needs to be funded and run by the city and needs to be kind of self-contained. And I'm just not wired that way. I'm a partnership guy. I'm a public-private partnership guy, where if the government entity, so in this case, the city council, can help, build the building or build the structure, the foundation for the organization, but then partner with other organizations to actually run it, that it's going to have better outcomes, because those groups are specialists in their different areas. So right. we need to find, for example, a group that's really good at youth programming. We need to find a group that's really good at delivering, say, healthcare, or we need to find a group that's good at senior programming. Excellent. And, yeah, because doesn't it mean if we just go bigger and bigger on the government, that's going to mean our taxes are just bigger and bigger? They're going to explode. That's one of the ticking time bombs that we have. Right.
Right now, there's a proposal that's going to be on the ballot this fall. It's called the LOST, the local option sales tax. And that's basically to add another 0.5% onto all of our purchases, except for food and clothing. Well, Hennepin County just added 1% because of what the state legislature did to us this spring by enacting all sorts of programs and creating entirely new bureaucracies that we're going to have to fund now for eternity. And so that's an extra percent. So now we're already at almost 9% from a sales tax standpoint, and we're going to add another 0.5% onto that. So we're going to have over 9% sales tax in Bloomington here if we don't watch it. And what's the sales tax going to go for? Well, it's going to go to pay for these big new buildings, right? So the community center is the biggest one. Then you have the Bloomington Ice Garden and you have 9 Mile Creek. So those are the 3 projects that are slated for this. But again, the sales tax is just to build these buildings. It doesn't involve running them. So you still have to have yearly budgeted money to run these buildings. And that's going to come out of property taxes. Where else are you going to get the money?
Wow.
So property taxes went up 9.2% this year. This year, next year they'll probably be 10, 12%. We haven't seen the numbers yet. But there's only so much that Bloomingtonians can take when it comes to just compounded increases of property taxes, sales tax, other fees that are built into your water bill, built into your cable bill. It's death by 1,000 cuts. And at some point, people are just going to revolt and say, we're not doing it anymore.
Well, they have to be aware of it. They would complain to me because I door knock all over the place in Bloomington when I have houses up for sale. So people do complain to me, but they're not making their voices heard. And that would be that they do go to city council meetings. They do get involved. They do support whoever they think would make a better Bloomington politically, like a city council member, yourself. So we're really calling to action. Get involved, everybody.
Yeah, you have to get involved. I mean, I just, it's a little, it's embarrassing, I guess, in a sense. And it's sad that I spent 17 years here and had absolutely no idea what was going on at a local level. I had every opportunity to, but today it's easier because you've got different social media groups. You've got different organizations like the one that I started to connect people and help people understand what was going on in different corners of the city.
Yes.
But residents have to get involved. You have to know what's going on at the local level, at the state level. Otherwise, you have no voice. And if you don't say anything, then you really don't have the ability to complain.
So the grassroots level would be a community action group, really talking to your neighbors. We don't have to make this brain surgery, and talking about where we're going with all this, especially during this season. It is going to be a ranked choice voting. That can be a podcast in itself. So maybe you could come back and explain really how that works, because I have a heck of a time understanding how it works, which makes me suspicious.
Well, that is a separate. We could do a separate conversation about that. It will impact the race this fall.
Okay.
But until we get that reversed or somehow eliminated from local life, it's what we've got, and we just have to deal with it.
Well, I think it's education. I think people have to understand what it is and how it affects you in your voting. So that'll be the next time we get together. I'm already dragging you back on. Thank you, David Clark. I am very excited to see your campaign, your vision, and your direction.
Thank you so much. I guess one thing that just about everybody, I believe, even people that have different viewpoints than I do believe that everybody does want what's best for Bloomington. I don't know anybody who wants to see Bloomington fail. So that's at least one good thing that we can say about, our community, is that we're all unified in the fact that we want Bloomington to be a better place in the future for our kids, for our grandkids. But there's obviously very differences of opinions on how do we get there. And that's what this race is going to be all about.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beth. Thank you to you. Thank you to the Flamingo Group and all those who are part of helping this podcast take place.